We are so excited to do an insurance-related video with our special guest, Pedro. He is our guru of insurance here at William Ravis in Florida, and we're going to ask him a bunch of questions on what to do when buying properties in Florida, what to look for, how to get the best deals on insurance. So let's get to it. First and foremost, as we're in spring right now, we have summer coming pretty soon here in Florida, and the thing that's on everybody's minds are, what do we do to prepare for upcoming hurricane season? So if I'm a buyer and I'm looking to purchase a home, what should I be looking for in terms of, do I need to have a home that has specific things that will help mitigate for insurance costs and so forth? So what would you recommend?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, of course, in Florida, we deal with a lot of hurricane, wind-driven storms, lightning, things like that. The biggest thing that I tell everybody is, especially now a lot of Floridians are doing, is getting hurricane-protected windows.
Okay.
Right, so having these impact windows not only helps protect your house, from major storms, but it also helps with insurance cost. So that helps reduce your insurance premium. If you have a large amount with no hurricane protection, you could easily save anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000-$3,000 on your insurance premium just by having the impact windows. So What I would always suggest is, that's one of the biggest things there.
Does it make a difference? Is there a difference between impact windows versus the shutters, like the accordion shutters or manual shutters?
So of course, anything that will help protect the house itself, so even the shutters itself will be good, but you're just not going to get the maximum credit that you're going to be able to get if you have hurricane impact windows.
Oh, okay.
So again, as the market changes, as we go through these major storms, carriers tend to look at specific things that's going to help, again, protect the property from any incurring damage, but also will help, with leniency on premium because you have the security of.
Okay, perfect. So if a buyer is evaluating different homes, one has hurricane impact windows and the other has accordion shutters, so best would be the impact windows.
The best would be impact windows because it sustains more of an impact than the regular shutters. And again, this is more of a preparation for the consumer. So as a buyer, right, you got to look at it. Okay, this is the property, this is my home. I want to make sure that it's fully secured. Not thinking that, how much am I going to save on insurance? Because the credit will come with it, but it's just, okay, I know that this is going to be much safer for my family. My home will be more protected in case of a major storm comes. That way, you mitigate any potential claims that may incur in the future.
Okay.
And that's the biggest factor right now, is that it's not even about price right now, it's about eligibility in the state of Florida.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that. So I was told that there's more carriers that have come into Florida.
Yes.
So that's exciting news.
Yeah, so it is very exciting news, but it's a 50-50 chance. Again, it all depends on how we handle this year. Hopefully no major storms. We don't get too many claims. Last storm was Ian that kind of impacted, Florida in a different way than we've expected. Because a lot of the damages were not even hurricane related, they were flood related. So a lot of the damage were flood related that caused property or homeowners that were self-insured thinking that, they're going to have some help. Unfortunately, if you don't have an insurance policy, you're not going to get any coverage. So that impacted the Florida market, which caused insurance companies to kind of tighten the restrictions, right, for eligibility, because again, they started noticing a lot of these properties were either have outdated roofs, the structure was already kind of damaged from previous storms, things like that. So as we all know, insurance, we all pay for everything. We all pay for everybody else's mistakes. So these mistakes kind of burden us because now as Floridians, as consumers, we have to pay higher insurance costs because now these companies cannot afford to continue giving low offers or low rates on insurance, because you got to think of it. If it's a $2, $3, $4 billion payout, these insurance companies need to make sure that they have enough premium saved to be able to pay out these claims.
Okay.
And that's what happened with Ian. A lot of the companies ended up backing out of Florida because they say this is it's too crazy for us to be able to insure. A lot of companies went bankrupt, so there was a loss of carriers there. And some companies like Universal Property and Casualty that have been in the market for 30 plus years unfortunately, they stopped writing for a long period of time because they had to mitigate a lot of their claim book or a lot of the claims that occurred because of that storm.
Okay.
So the eligibility portion kind of got very strict at that time after Ian. So now carriers are trying to be more lenient and trying to better offer, give offers to the consumers. But at the same time, they're not going to go back to the rates that they were before, because now they know, well, if this happened once, what are the chances of this happening again in the future? And as an insurance carrier, you don't want to be able to provide insurance coverage to homeowners to help them save costs, but then at a huge payout, or if there's a major loss, they're not going to be able to afford to pay you out.
Okay. So in looking for some of those ways to mitigate cost, I know you mentioned maybe something about the way the construction is, the roof and so forth. What would be the best practice to, like, say a home buyer is looking to purchase a home? What would be the best way to consider one home over another, depending on the home itself as far as construction?
Yeah, well, again, it all depends on where you're going to be looking at. So if you're looking at coastal properties, of course, it's going to be different than if you were to look at properties more inland. But the biggest thing is that I've noticed in insurance premium is the way that the roof is structured to the house.
Okay.
So there's something that we call on the wind mitigation report is a hip roof, and then there's a gable roof.
Okay.
The way that works, and it's very simple, is the hip roof, think of it as of a pyramid, right? So notice those houses that have all four angles going down. That's a better credit than if you were to have a roof that has more of a triangular structure. Why? Because you got to think of it like this: at this time of a storm, whichever way the wind hits, if you have a hip roof that's more of a pyramid style, the wind can bounce off it better than if you were to have a roof that has a triangular entrance. And then if that wind hits that triangle portion from the roof, the chances of actually pulling out is higher than if you were to just bounce off of the roof.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's something that not too many people know about because it wasn't such a big deal before. But again, as the storms get stronger, we go through hurricanes that are worse than the ones before. That helps big time because, again, at this point, it's all about mitigating any potential losses down the road.
Okay.
Right. So as a first-time buyer, I would suggest looking at those type of particular properties to kind of get a better rating on insurance than to say if you want a more of a complex type of roof, even though it looks nice and makes the house look beautiful. Sometimes it's not the best option because insurance premium is going to be higher.
Okay, that's really good to know. What are some other tips that you might want to share? Like just insurance in general when buyers are looking for a home to purchase. Is there anything like in general that you can share?
The biggest thing that I've noticed is making sure that, of course, the roof is updated, right? That's going to help with insurance premium.
How much roof life would you say like it really should have?
So it depends on the material. So for shingle roofs, a lot of carriers are limiting themselves between 10 years and 15 years.
Okay.
Usually the shingle roofs back then say that, well, if it's good, it'll last you 30 years. Unfortunately, again, after all this scenario kind of changed. So for shingle roofs, the maximum amount that they allow is 15 years. Tile roofs will be the best outcome after shingles because now the tile roofs can go up to 20 to 30 years.
And is that, I know there's barrel tile, but now we're seeing like the flat tile.
Which is the concrete tile.
Are any one better than the other?
The concrete tiles is better, but you got to think about it. That to purchase that material specifically costs more money. So like, if there was a major loss, that means that they would have to increase the amount of coverage or dwelling coverage to be able to afford to repurchase those tile roofs.
Okay.
So clay tiles and tile roofs, the good thing is that they both give you that life expectancy. So again, it goes back to eligibility.
Okay.
But then when it comes down to quoting the material based off the coverage amount, you're going to see that the concrete tile is going to be higher on the coverage because the value of that material is much higher.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Does that make sense? So again, it all comes to the point of eligibility at this time. So tile roofs, again, one of the best ones. The best one out there that I highly recommend everybody, but again, it gets very pricey, will be metal roofs.
Yes.
Nowadays, carriers, when they see metal roof, they want it because they know metal roofs can last up to 50, 60 years and can withstand higher impacts, damages, and of course, is a lot more better.
Yeah, I've seen recently the stone-coated tile or metal roofs. Those are nice because, you know, some HOAs don't allow the metal roofs, but the stone-coated ones, it looks just like a tile roof. You can barely tell that it's actually metal. So yeah,
Exactly.
that was interesting. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
So other tips that you?
Another portion I would suggest is if you want to look at newer model homes, unfortunately, insurance carriers are really looking at the age of the house nowadays.
Okay.
So the older the house is, the higher the premium might come back because again, it's an older home. So if you want to stick to newer construction, I would say that would be the best option. I've had properties quoting at $1 million in dwelling coverage and paying $1,400 a year on insurance because again, it's a newer model. It has all the nice features, hurricane impact windows. It has the hip roof. It has the secondary water resistance, which is another portion of the roof. So it has all the nice features that every carrier wants. So carriers will give me the best price for new construction.
Great. What about if somebody has a home and they're renting it versus, owner occupied? Is there a difference in insurance they need for that?
There is. So you have, if you're going to be living in the house as a primary residence, you're going to have the HO3 policy. That HO3 policy is specifically tailored as a homeowner's occupancy type of policy. So it gives you all the nice features, dwelling, personal property, other structures, liability, things like that. For the landlord portion, there's a specific form which is called a DP3 form. Okay. And that's dwelling and fire is what they usually call it. That will protect the landlord, but allows them the capability to rent out the unit to somebody else. So it'll protect them, the landlord, it'll protect the structure, protect the roof, it'll give them liability coverage. The only thing that it won't cover would be personal property. Okay. So if you're gonna be doing, rental, you don't have to really include that portion because the tenant should be able to afford their own policy for their own stuff. Okay. So that kind of gives you a break on the insurance premium. And then the most important thing is the loss of use on the dwelling and fire tends to be higher because the loss of use, what it really is for, God forbid, the property takes major damage and nobody can live in it during that time frame. The insurance company will help pay for you to either pay for your rent, pay for your mortgage, pay for the lights, whatever, but also include any coverage for the tenant to find shelter somewhere else. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, good to know. What about flood insurance? Like I have a lot of buyers that are buying new construction as an elevated, elevated property and not in flood zones, but they always ask, well, should I get insurance for flood anyway? What would you say, like, what are the benefits of having flood insurance even though it's not in a flood zone? Like, what would be covered that they wouldn't think of? Well, like I tell everybody, we do live in Florida tend to have a lot of flood locations. Some, because of the elevation, it'll help you out, but that doesn't mean you're 100% safe. So a lot of the times I've seen properties that are in an egg zone, right? But again, that egg zone means that you just have the option to not have mandatory flood insurance. Okay. So let's say if you were to get a mortgage when you purchase the house, the mortgage is going to know that if you're in a flood zone area, you have to get flood insurance no matter what. If the property is in an ag zone, then of course it is optional. The bank is not going to require it for you to carry, but it is optional. It's always something that I tell people, if the price is right and it makes sense and it doesn't break the bank, then why not include it? Because you never know what could happen. Sure. Right? What would be something other than, a flood? Is there other water related issues that would be covered under the flood policy that maybe people aren't aware of? Yeah, so if you live by a lake, okay. If you have a nice little palm view in the back, you never know, it could rain 7 days, 7 nights consecutively, unexpectedly. Next thing you know, the water level starts rising because that was very unexpected. Once the water intrudes into your house at that moment, that becomes a flood issue. Okay. Mm-hmm. What about if there was a hurricane and, the hurricane did damage to the roof and now there's flooding inside from rain from the hurricane? Would that be flood or would that be That would be considered the hurricane portion. Okay. So the way that insurance sees it is that any water damage that comes from the top down is hurricane related because of course the wind is coming down. Anything from the ground up is going to be considered flood insurance or flood coverage at that moment. So that's how you'd be able to kind of like a water main break. Exactly. So if there's a leaky pipe that bursts out of the unit or the property, that's going to be covered under your homeowner's insurance. That's not going to be covered as flood because that's something that happened internal on the property itself. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So covered quite a bit.
Let me think if there was anything else. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about?
The best thing that I always say is insurance is something that you do have to review every single year.
Okay.
I've noticed that clients have a policy that's 5, 6, 7 years old, but they're paying $30,000 in insurance because their agent doesn't give them that information. Hey, there's a new carrier that came in. Let's see what options they give us. Again, insurance is something that you have to kind of be on top of, but you also have to have somebody that's going to help you with that as well.
Okay.
So what I tend to do is I tell my clients is that every single year we're going to be reviewing your options, because as the market changes, so does the carrier guideline changes, so does the carrier that come into the market change. So you never know what opportunity you could get down the road that's going to help you save costs, get better coverage, if you don't really sit down with your insurance agent and kind of review your whole policy every single year.
Okay. And I know you do different lines of insurance, not just homeowners. You also do auto and so forth. So are there discounts if you have the auto and homeowners in one carrier?
Yes, so that bundle does come helpful in a certain aspect, but unfortunately, Florida itself does not give us that option with carriers. Carriers are not offering kind of the bundle package, unfortunately, because again, you have some carriers that want to do auto insurance but won't do the home insurance.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it all depends on the carrier, but again, as long as we don't have any crazy things happen this year and the market loosens up a bit, then you're going to be able to see that maybe down the road. But as of right now, it's still in the air.
So the best advice you would have to a homeowner looking in Florida, say they're just moving here, they really, aren't sure where they want to live yet, what would be some of the key takeaways, like the best advice for them in looking for a home, as far as insurance purposes?
As far as insurance, again, making sure that you have hurricane windows protected. Again, the year of the house, so if you're looking at a newer model compared to a rebuild, you're going to see some differences there. Look, if you want to be close to the water or far away from the water, if you're going to have a river bed behind your house, all those kind of things, even though you don't think about it, could still potentially affect you when you're trying to get financing, when you're trying to purchase the house down the road or for insurance. And just making sure that the roof is updated, everything looks clean. I mean, again, usually these inspections, when purchasing a house, you'll have the 4-point and the wind mitigation that will kind of give you the full story of the house.
Is there if it's a newer home, do they still need the wind mitigation and 4-point?
No, so if the home is older than 20 years, you're not going to need the 4-point inspection.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying,
if it's newer than
20 years, you're not going to need the 4-point inspection. Now, let's say if the property is 2012, and they just recently did an update on the roof, then the wind mitigation will be needed to get you those credits needed to show proof that you've had an updated roof.
Okay, so if it's newer construction, like say in the past 10 years,
yeah,
do they still need wind mitigation?
No, you wouldn't need wind mitigation or 4-point inspection. Now, again, it all depends on the carrier. Some carriers are going to require it because if you change, for example, a credit on there, let's say that the newer house, for example, does not have hurricane protection window, the system will automatically assume because of the year of the age of the home. But then sometimes if we remove it, then they're going to require, okay, we need to show proof why that credit is either removed or applied.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
the wind mitigation credit, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, well, this has been really helpful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Any last parting words?
Any last parting words? It's very important who you work with with your insurance agent. So if you want the best of the best, reach out to me.
All right. Thank you so much, Pedro. You're wonderful to work with. I know you always give us the best information and help our buyers tremendously. So I really appreciate you taking the time to answer questions for our online guests.
Of course, not a problem. More than happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.